Hello, I am Aman Soni, and today I'll be discussing with you what is budget and what are the components of budget. Alright, so let's start the discussion. So budget. So budget, it is the annual financial statement. So budget is the annual financial statement presented by the government, and this annual financial statement, it tells about government's income and government's expenditure. All right, it's an annual financial statement which tells government's income and government's expenditure, like how much the government is expecting to earn in the next year, and same goes with expenditure, how much the government is expecting to spend next year. And similarly, it also tells from where the government is expecting to earn, whether the government is expecting to earn from taxes or by disinvestment or by loans. Okay? So when I say income, it means from where the government will be getting its receipts, whether it will be getting its receipts from taxes, disinvestment proceeds or loans. And similarly, when I say expenditure, it means where the government is going to spend its money, whether the government is going to spend its money on creation of infrastructure or on providing subsidies. Okay? So budget, it tells how much the government is spending and where it is spending, and how much the government is earning and from where it is earning. That is what is budget is. All right, and budget, it is presented every year on 1st of February. All right, it's presented every year on 1st of February. So on 1st of Feb 2022, all right, the year which is going on 1st of Feb 2022, if government is presenting the budget, that budget will be for the year 1st April 2022 to 31st of March 2023. So budget is an estimation of what's going to happen in the coming year. All right, and government implements its fiscal policy. All right, government implements its fiscal policy with the help of budget. Okay, and this budget which we present every year, it is also called as general budget. And the budget which is presented during election year, that budget is called interim budget. All right, now let's now see the components of budget. So if I talk about budget, it has two components. Revenue account and capital account. Revenue account and capital account. Now, from revenue account, there will be some expenditure, and in revenue account there will be certain receipts. Similarly, in capital account also there will be certain expenditure, and from capital account there will be some expenditure and there will be some receipts. Now, if there are receipts in revenue account, it is called revenue receipts, and if there are receipts in capital account, it is called capital receipts. If there is some expenditure in capital account, it is called capital expenditure, and if there is expenditure from revenue account, it is called revenue expenditure. Now, do not get confused that how it can be revenue and expenditure at the same time, because this generally when you say revenue of a company, it means how much the company is earning, and when we say expenditure of a company, it means how much the company is spending. So how it's possible that revenue and expenditure are coming together? Point is, this account is called revenue account, hence any expenditure associated with this account will be called revenue expenditure. So that is just the classification कि revenue account में we will have revenue expenditure, revenue receipts, capital account में we will have capital expenditure, capital receipts. Now how do we memorize them? How do we remember them? Now if we have to remember them, we need to start from capital expenditure. So what is capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is that expenditure which either creates assets or which reduces the liabilities. Remember this. Okay? The capital expenditure is that expenditure which either creates, I'll write it again, it appears not that great. So capital expenditure is that expenditure which either creates assets or which reduces the liabilities. Okay? Now, capital receipt is totally opposite of this. So that is how we memorize it. Alright, capital expenditure is totally opposite of this. So what is capital receipts? Capital receipt is which either creates liabilities or reduces the assets. Okay? Which either creates liabilities or which reduces the assets. Now, this revenue expenditure is a negative of capital expenditure. It is negative of capital expenditure. So what is revenue expenditure? Which neither creates assets nor reduces the liabilities. And what is revenue receipt? It is totally opposite of this. So which neither creates liabilities nor reduces the assets. Alright. So that is how we memorize them. That is how we remember them. Alright. So if you have to start, if there's a question in the exam like what is revenue expenditure, what is revenue receipts, then I would suggest that instead of remembering it blank, you start it from here, capital expenditure. Because when I say capital expenditure, it means investment, it means capex, it means initial investment. So capital expenditure is which either creates assets or which reduces liabilities. Once you get over there, capital expenditure, then you can surely derive capital receipts, revenue expenditure and revenue receipts. Alright. Now, earlier, but that is not how the budget is, alright, because budget is what? Government's income and government's expenditure. So what is budget? Budget is government's expenditure and government's receipts. Government's expenditure, two types. revenue expenditure, capital expenditure. Receipts two types, revenue receipts and capital receipts. All right. Now capital receipts are classified into further two type of receipts, which are debt creating capital receipts and non-debt creating capital receipts. Revenue receipts also classified into two, tax revenue receipts and non-tax revenue receipts. Now we do not have 5-year plans. Earlier when we had 5-year plans, then the expenditure was classified into plan expenditure and non-plan expenditure. So that we had expenditure as plan expenditure as it was mentioned in 5-year plan, and non-plan expenditure which was not mentioned in 5-year plan, non-plan expenditure. Plan expenditure was also of two types, revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Non-plan also of two types, revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. All right. So that is how the classification was. But now as we do not have 5-year plans, hence there is no classification into plan expenditure and non-plan expenditure. Now we only have this expenditure, revenue expenditure, capital expenditure. All right. Now, if government's total receipts are more than government's total expenditure, all right, if government's receipts are more than government's expenditure, then it is called a surplus budget. On the other hand, if government's receipts are less than government's expenditure, it is called a deficit budget. And third is, which generally doesn't happen, when receipts are equal. When receipts are equal to expenses, it is called a balanced budget. All right. Now, ideally, we should have a deficit budget, because if it's deficit budget, it means government is spending more. It means there is more liquidity in the market. It means there will be more demand created in the market. Hence, there will be more production in the market. So, ideally, we should have a deficit budget. India also has deficit budget, but the deficit has to be controlled. We just cannot allow a deficit to go beyond a certain limit, because if deficit goes beyond a certain level, it has its own set of drawbacks. That we can discuss, that we will be discussing in the class itself. What are the drawbacks of high fiscal deficit or high budget deficit, we can say. Okay. So that is the discussion regarding structure of budget, where I discussed with you what is budget. We discussed the various accounts, revenue account and capital account. Then we discussed the components of revenue account, that is revenue receipts, revenue expenditure, capital receipts, capital expenditure, and then we defined them. All right. For further clarity on these concepts, for further knowledge on these concepts, for further information on these concepts, you can always go to the main course and see all the videos regarding budget and fiscal policy. All right. Thank you.